I'm sure our audience, both on site and online, will have questions for Professor Perez. Yes, I have one question.
Okay.
Yes, because this presentation is about global history, global trade after early modern period. It's between early modern period and the first Opium War. Some days ago, I saw some colleagues in mainland China. They mentioned a global history, but in the context of Middle Ages. But we know in the Middle Ages, there is no such big, large scale of traveling between East and West. So can you give us some information about how global history can be possible in the Middle Ages? Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Particularly West and the East.
For the Silk Road.
For Silk Road. Yeah.
Yes. No, I mean, for your question, yeah, I mean, global history, as I was mentioning before, with the concept of globalization, can be applied in any geography and any chronology. Again, the important thing is how can we implement it through connections and, first of all, the sources. But the most important thing is to formulate the important question. For the case of the Middle Ages, like you are asking, now what it comes to my mind is the importance at the present day, or the last, let's say, last 5-10 years, the narrative of the Silk Road, right? But here, another really important concept that I have not mentioned, but really important in terms of precisely the application of the national narratives to history. Because now the question is for you guys. The Silk Road, who was the first talking about the Silk Road? Whose person? Which author? Do you know? The person who mentioned, it was not Marco Polo, who mentioned the Silk Road was actually a Western, because precisely the Silk Road was not mentioned in any case in the Min Shilu or Qin Shilu, which means the Min sources or Qin sources. You don't see any writing about the Silk Road. The first one using this concept was Ferdinand von Richthofen, was a German geographer of the 19th century. So he was doing work excavation. So he talked about I'm not good at German, the concept in German, the Seidenstraße. So it was what we have in the 19th century in Europe. We have the movement of Romanticism. We have the new nation states. So we were building nationalism and national history in the 19th century. So geography, archaeology, because this was a geographer and archaeologist, so needed this concept to boost the precisely. Please.
That this could be considered as a part of so-called Orientalist agenda, right? The whole concept of Orientalism to identify and to address the issue of the Oriental understanding of the Orient, so-called. So this is typical modern concept, Western concept to deal with the East. Without only later we have the shift to understanding how how China understood itself beyond this modernist concept of Orientalism. Yeah.
Precisely. It was because at the end of the day, we can also review, I mean, I'm not Marco Polo expert, but the part between fiction and reality, between the personage of Marco Polo and the history, right? And at that time, there was no mention about Silk Road. Again, it's a modern concept, a projection. If you allow me, it's like somehow the narrative of Benedict Anderson, Imagine Communities. Like the same happened when precisely when Benedict Anderson was analyzing the communities for the understanding of analysis of nationalism or modern nation state in the 19th century. Of course, nation need to reinvent it, create a glorious, like Germany did, Spain, Great Britain, to create and invent an history to boost the national spirit in the population. So precisely what you say, Jared, for the concept of Orientalism that apply for the precisely for this Silk Road. Again, a projection to the medieval ages, because also fit with the case, like when, in this, if you allow me to make another simplistic example, is you can see in the Wagner's operas, in the Nibelungos, or so they were recreating the Holy German Empire in the medieval ages. So what was the agenda in the 19th century? Again, invented national history and narratives for the purpose of nationalism in that particular. It could also make for the antagonism between the West and the East that could be fixed on the concept of the Silk Road.
I'm still interested in wine. You mentioned wine. Yeah,
Okay.
The importation of wine into China. And you mentioned that there is a big market. Do you know who are these? Who are the main consumers?
The main consumers. Yes, the main consumer, the home merchants, and also the local. Well, to be fair, in the PPT, can we go back again to the PPT? So here, most of the data here I have is about trade, but I can give you here a really nice example precisely. Well, most of this wine was shipped in these jars, or some of them of course made of porcelains. And here an example precisely in this. Well, yes, this is how it worked, the contraband illegal trade. This is data of the Espiritu Santo Galleon, another important ship. Here another discourse, because this Espiritu Santo was navigated in the Pacific, but also in the Atlantic. And there was an anecdote of this ship that doesn't relate to this map, but for the important of this one was sunk in the waters close to Colombia. And some years ago, the underwater archaeology, they discovered the ship, but it was the Americans. And then the Colombians were claiming for this ship. But the Spanish authorities said, no, but this period is the Spanish Empire, so it belongs to us. So there is a huge dispute of this underwater archaeology site. So if this ship also, many of those were in Manila, to who belong to the Spanish Empire, the Philippines, or even the Chinese. So, but this is just as an anecdote. But here, the most important thing for you to understand this trade and also potential consumers is was loaded and the parts from Manila coming from Macao and from Canton and Macao. And since the ship was loaded higher than the quantity permitted by the state in terms of paying taxes, another way to see who is regulating, who is making sure here in the Philippines, the King of Spain miles ago can make sure that the supervisor and the governor of the Philippines were pure and not corrupt for trade? Of course not, because these ships were, if they were successfully arriving to the destination from Spain to Manila and then back, that would be a success. Again, today and yesterday in the archive of Macau, I see many ships claimed by the Holy House of Mercy that they were in bankrupt because they was funding, investing in the shipping, and many of the ships were shipwrecked, lost the cargo, or the partner took the money and the cargo and went away. So it was a very risky business. So here, in order to make the business profitable, the cargo of the Espiritu Santo was loaded double or triple as allowed. But since in August, because they have to wait for the monsoons to return from Manila to Acapulco, but was hit by a storm, and then it ended, the trajectory was deviated to the port of Tosashimitsu in Japan. But look, it's 16-2. What's happening this year? So we have the new Tokugawa Ieyasu, which put an end to the previous, we have in the shogunate. And what's happening this year? The Christians, the missionary was crushed no one was allowed, no evil barbarian, no matter what Western or foreigner, was allowed to go to enter the port of Japan. But this ship was deviated. So it went through a very complex diplomatic thing and negotiation to allow the ship to anchor in the port of Tosashimitsu, to do the repairments and then to return. But again here, because in this period, Japan was even much more closer than China. So another nice example on this.
So thank you, Professor Perez, for this interesting lecture, in which we know a lot of historical details about the trade between East and the West. I think it will help us to develop the understanding between how the East and the West were communicated, which is much needed today.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
As you mentioned, there are a lot of difficulties like disputations, how people deal with disputations among the traders in that period. That was a question. I think it is still a question among people in the West. Yes. So thank you again. And I would also like to thank all the audience online and on site. The next forum will take place on the 28th of June, the end of this month. I will be the speaker. The topic will be on Matteo Ricci's doctrine on human nature. So if you have time, you're welcome to join. Thank you.
Thank you.